Okay, good evening, everyone. How are you doing? Anyway, I would like to present to you my grant proposal for neurological research of adolescents with high-functioning autism spectrum disorder in a music therapy intervention. So, as we all know, the field of neurologic music therapy has really expanding, and just expanding more since. So, here's some of the specific areas that neurologic music therapy covers, and more areas that it covers. And so, anyhow, we know that music can really have an effect, and we can really see it even at a neurological level at this point. And we're just probably going to be able to see it at even bigger depth. So, the neurological research, it shows how the brain is working in relation anywhere from music in the brain, leisurely or actively. Okay? And not just that, but also has to do with disabilities, with the elderly, okay? And even with little babies, and just really, just really a lot. I mean, we just really can analyze so much of the population of how the brain is responding to music. So now, why is that important? Well, first of all, we have to realize the fact that it helps us to be able to appreciate music and our profession of music therapy at a different level. And you could say at an even deeper level. Okay? It really can, and I love this quote following, it's really help us understand that people call them disabilities, but quite frankly, they're just different. That's all. It's really not a disability. Okay? Okay? So, now we all know that music affects the brain. Yeah. Okay, or rather, yes, the brain is influenced by musical activity. But how so? Is that the case? Right? Now we can't answer the question why, because science doesn't answer why, but we can answer how. And while we are able to see the effect on the brain, we also notice as a result of that neurological development, it also affects the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual as well. Every aspect of being a human. But how about those with cognitive disabilities? So autism spectrum, ADHD, Tourette syndrome, are just a few of them. I mean, you also have Down syndrome, intellectual disabilities, um, among others. So one thing you have to realize is that the brain function is not the same. The wave measurements and the activity is just not the same. It's just different. So some questions I have is, so what are the alpha wave activities for those with high functioning autism spectrum disorder compared to the typical peers? Okay? And what part of the brain has a distinguished response to music therapy intervention? So through this project, I really hope to give new perspective to the potentially short and long-term benefits of music therapy for adolescents with high-functioning autism spectrum disorder and cognitive function. Okay, so let's just talk about autism spectrum disorder first. So first of all, it's becoming increasingly prevalent. So nowadays it's about 1 in 50, 168, excuse me, that are affected, and it's about 5 times more prevalent in boys than it is in girls. Okay, so about 1 in 10 also have a comorbid condition to go with the autism spectrum disorder. And yes, it is or a core occurrence. Okay, so unfortunately, I can say this from my own experience, it's difficult to diagnose children from a young age. So typically, after about 4 years old or so, that's when they get diagnosed. I personally was diagnosed when I was 5. Okay, now the symptoms start showing up as young as 2, and that's about the same for me. I can definitely say that for sure. Almost half of the children, and this is according to the federal government research, but according to that research, half of the children that are diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder are on this side of the spectrum, the high functioning autism, or what used to be known as Asperger's, almost half. And obviously on the other side, we have the point of severe cognitive impairment. So all to the point of where some children with autism spectrum disorder are diagnosed as comorbid with intellectual disability. So for those on the high end of the functioning end of the spectrum, they do have intellectual intelligence, okay, and they do have the ability to process information at a cognitive level. So academically, not nearly as effective as those on the other side of the spectrum, or even maybe in the middle of the spectrum. And they have a certain amount of problem-solving skills. They have, and I can say it myself, unique yet very good observation ability. And in general, they're more or less able to function normally. However, from a social standpoint, unfortunately I can say this for myself, it's still socially awkward. It's still very difficult to observe others and learn how to function in a society. So even for those on the high functioning end. So there are still struggles there. And well, there's pain, there's isolation, there's loneliness that comes as a result of it. Especially more so because people can't see it, so they just don't know. Okay? And there are still comprehension problems. Now, it's not as obvious, but it is more subtle. But it's subtle enough so that it does have an effect. So, for example, in my case, as far as reading comprehension is concerned, I do have reading problems. So, and they are subtle, but I've noticed a lot of times where I can miss things even after reading the same page 3 times slowly. I can still miss the same thing, or not be able to comprehend the same sentence, even though I understand all the words. So even for those on high functioning, it's more subtle, but it's still there. It's obviously it's quite discouraging when you're doing subpar in school or whatever else you do, just because you don't know how to process things cognitively.